Okay. Oh, it's recording. All right.
So
Just waiting for people to show up.
there's one. That's my admin. Hi,
Oh.
Chelsea.
Well, woohoo! Are we ready to get started?
I think so.
All right. Well, howdy, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Seaside Chat. I'm your host, Chloe, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest speaker this week, who is Nicole Pilson. Nicole is Texas Sea Grant's Matagorda County Extension Agent, and she has a great chat for us, and I'm so excited. So welcome, Nicole. How are you?
Good, Chloe. Thank you so much for having me and your very sweet little introduction there. And thank you to everyone who's joining us. Sorry if I'm like watching the side. I'm literally watching all the people sign on. It feels kind of creepy because I can't see y'all, but I can see your names. So thank you all for taking some time out of your day to come hang out for a little bit and just chat. And well, Chloe, if we're ready, I'll get us going here.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn off my camera, y'all, because as I was telling Chloe, I will just watch myself the whole time. So let me stop that real quick and see if I'm talented and can share my screen with y'all. So bear with me 1 second here while I get that going. All right. Come on. Oh, my goodness. There we go. All righty. So we're going to present. Chloe, can you see that?
I can, and it looks great. I love it.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, y'all. So we're just going to talk about some seafood today. So if I say the word seafood about 100 times, I'm so sorry. There's just not a great synonym for that, really. So let's get going here. To begin, now that October is almost over, it is National Seafood Month. And this was kind of a promotion done by local businesses, restaurants, obviously seafood dealers, just to promote local seafood and kind of get the word out there like, hey, we're here, we're a great protein, kind of come check us out. And like I said, seafood really is an awesome protein. It's a great source of nutrients. So you could probably replace maybe some of your other proteins with it. You could try to do up to 2 seafood meals a week. That would be really cool. Texas is, we don't always think about us being kind of a coastal state, right? People think of Texas. What do we think of? We think of beef cattle, right? Which is great. Awesome. But we definitely are a coastal state. In 2017, we landed over 93 million pounds of seafood, and that's crazy. And it comprised over like 50 species, including red snapper, which people really like, black drum, croaker, and of course, shrimp. You cannot forget about Gulf shrimp. It is the best out there, and I'm not biased at all. Okay. So why should we support local? I feel like this is such a buzz word, kind of a trend, right? That we hear now, people like, go local, all of this, but you really should, especially when it comes to your seafood, right? Because you're supporting your local economy. Some of these commercial fishermen or aquaculturists, our fish farmers, right? They're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family. I know here in Matagorda County, that's a huge culture. Everyone knows someone that's in some kind of a fishery. So you're supporting your neighbors, which is a great thing to do. And of course, there's some seafood that we can't grow or catch here in Texas, like your lobster or your salmon, although I'd be super into it if, that could happen, but I won't hold my breath. But as long as it's, US, I think that's just as good too, right? So local in this sense, really meaning the United States and Texas, of course. So our local products are really regulated as compared to maybe some of the stuff we might get overseas, where it's kind of ambiguous. We're not super sure what they might be putting in products, where that product's coming from. Is it sustainable? Things like that. In the US, we're very regulated on all of those processes and things like that, which brings me, of course, to sustainability, another one of those buzzwords. People really care about having sustainable food and sustainable seafood, of course, and that's awesome. I think we're becoming more food aware, as we should. I think we have a right to know where our food is coming from, and are we doing a good job to preserve those populations and those habitats. And in the US, that is definitely something we strive to do, and making sure that we're not overfishing and losing a resource. Of course, if you've ever bought, and I wish I could see all, I'd make you raise your little hands, and not in any kind of a shameful way though at all. But if you've ever bought imported seafood, and I think we've all done it at least, a few times, it happens, right? You've bought it, you're like, it's okay. It's all right. There's nothing special about it. But then you buy maybe some Texas Gulf shrimp or another US product seafood. It is worlds better. The texture is really nice. If we're just talking about shrimp, as an example right now, the Gulf shrimp the texture is so much better, right? The flavor is a lot better. You just know you're getting a better quality product as compared to something that might have come again from overseas or another country. And if we're buying things that are local, we are reducing our carbon footprint, which is something that's very important nowadays, right? We're not relying on ships and trucks to come from places far away. It's right here, it's pretty close. So that's a great thing as well. So I'm talking about local seafood, but how do we even know that it's local? How do we check that? Well, I want to say it's pretty easy, but you can be pretty duped, especially if you're in a grocery store. If you're buying, say, like a frozen bag of catfish fillets or shrimp or something, you might look at that product and the branding sounds really American, right? Like, I don't know, maybe they have red, white, and blue on it or something. And you're like, oh, cool, this looks like it was from here. I'll just buy that. Don't be tricked. As we all know, branding tricks kind of exist. So make sure you look usually on the back of that packaging, and it will say product of wherever, right? Seafood has to be legally marked where the country of origin is. If it's not American, it has to say it. And of course, if it is American, it is going to say it. By law, country of origin has to be printed on our seafood. So if you flip over your bag, and sometimes it's in little bitty print, but look at it and make sure it says product of USA. If it is a Texas product, it won't always say that. It's kind of a general USA. But sometimes you might know that brand and you're like, hey, they're down here, they're in Texas. And if it is a Texas product, we're all super proud of that. And it'll probably say it somewhere on there. So just be really conscious and aware. Take a few extra seconds to really look and see where your products are coming from. Again, don't really trust the brand names or how a logo might look. Kind of do your quick research there in the store and read on the package there. If you're buying your seafood over at like the fish counter or anything, it says it right there too, as you look down kind of that row of maybe shrimp or fish or whatever it might be. It's going to say, farm raised product of USA or wild caught from the Gulf or something like that. So just make sure you look on that little marker that it is an American or a Texas product. So buying our local seafood, some people think that might be really hard. I have to live in a coastal town. I have to live by the water to get good seafood. And that is definitely not true. Like I said, grocery stores are a great way, and there's grocery stores everywhere that sell local seafood that you can buy it at. Like I said earlier, just make sure you are checking that product origin. So go to your grocery stores, they sell seafood. And of course, fish markets, which might be a little harder if you're inland, but if you make a trip down here to the coast, or you are in the coast, there's a seafood shop right across from my building here, and they're a great resource. You can go in there and they'll talk to you about the products. They know where they're coming from. They'll sell whole fish, and I know that's kind of daunting for some people, right? Like, we're not given a whole cow and be like, here you go, break it down. So if you're given a whole fish, it's kind of, along the same lines. If you're not familiar with that product, they'll break it down for you. You can ask them, hey, I really like that flounder. How should I prepare it? What should I do? What do I do with it, right? And they'll be more than happy to walk you through that and to take care of it, because they're really proud of the products that they have, whether that seafood shop has bought it or caught that or grown it or whatever it was, they're proud of that product and they're happy to guide you through that process and buying your local seafood. Even your bait shops, you make sure you ask for table shrimp though, and not bait shrimp, or you're going to be a little sad maybe because the bait shrimp are obviously a little smaller, but a great way to go fishing. So of course you can go fishing on your own to get your own product. And again, that is not something that is really that expensive or hard to do. You don't need a boat to do it. I don't own a boat and I go fishing quite a bit. Well, not as much as I probably could or should lately. But all you need is a fishing pole and a little bit of bait. Again, get that local Texas shrimp or your bay shrimp. Again, you cannot use imported products to go fishing with. It has to be a local shrimp or bait to use. So you can buy your own bait, you can go fishing, which is great because it opens up your possibilities to different kinds of fish, because you won't find necessarily redfish in a seafood market because there is no commercial harvest for redfish anymore in Texas. They are farm raised. So if you want redfish, you can definitely go fishing for them. Or if you know a friend with a boat or that's a really good fisherman, ask them. Not the great way to get it too, but anyone can go fishing for sure. And all you have to do is either sit at the end of a jetty or at the end of a seawall. And it's a great way to also just connect with nature and kind of let go a little bit. So I definitely recommend fishing. And of course, you can buy local seafood from fishermen that are licensed to sell. You can go down to the shrimp docks and you can buy the shrimp. Or if a fisherman has that dealer's license, he can sell to you as well. So there are tons of options when it comes to buying local seafood. You just kind of have to look and again, be aware of where that product is coming from. And I know if you're looking here, this is not an oyster shell. I just want to point this out. Canva did not have a free oyster shell little picture for me to use. So we are using this like clam situation. Pretend it's an oyster. Just use your imagination. All right, the big debate, right? Fresh or frozen. We're made to think that fresh is better. And you know what? That is definitely not the case. Our frozen product is just as good as our fresh product. And if you're buying Gulf shrimp, it's been frozen because they're out for 30, 40, 60, however, they're out for a long, long time. You can't keep anything fresh like that for that long. And by fresh, I mean like not frozen, right? It's still technically fresh. So on those big Gulf shrimp boats, they have freezers. And so they can take care of that product right away, freeze it. So it keeps its texture, it keeps the nutrients. Just like we flash freeze our vegetables and things like that. Our modern techniques and science have come such a long way that frozen product really is an excellent option. Now you don't have to shy away from your frozen seafoods. I have access to fresh shrimp a lot, but I will buy frozen sometimes when I'm just like in a pinch and I don't really know when I'm going to use that product and it's already frozen so nicely for me. And it really is. It's so good. It peels very nicely. It tastes great. So I recommend it. Don't be shy about frozen seafood. It really is just as good. And again, things are regulated so that a lot of preservatives and stuff are not put into those products. So if you go to your grocery store or wherever and you want maybe some catfish fillets or your shrimp, pick up a bag of the frozen. You'll be really surprised, I think, how good it is. And then of course, you know, your fresh seafood, that's always good as well. And like I said, a lot of these products are frozen right on the vessels, fish that are caught offshore and aren't, you know, going to make it back that day or whatever it might be. I mean, it's going to be frozen, right? And again, they're freezing it right there in the vessel, which is really cool. I've been in one of those freezers and it's just like this massive freezer at the bottom of the ship and just like stacks and stacks of bags of shrimp. It's super cool. Very, very cool to see. So go ahead. Don't shy away from frozen seafood, y'all. It will be all right. And maybe something else that people that we talk about a lot now is that farm raised kind of versus wild caught product. Is one better than the other? Should I not be buying one? That none of this is true. Both are great products. They're fantastic. I highly recommend buying farm raised and wild caught because you're supporting two different like economies or even just people, right? You have your wild caught harvesters and then you have your farmers, both making a living, both doing a great job at what they do. So you're supporting both of those entities, right? And our regulations for our farmers and of course the wild caught folks, they're strict. They're very strict here in the US when it comes to those sanitary conditions. If we're thinking about oysters, right? We have the Department of Health that goes out and checks those processing plants. They're out there at the docks, making sure that the oysters aren't sitting there for too long and getting hot and spoiling. You know, they are checking all of these things. Even if there's a little hole in the building of the wall, like that is things they're looking for, because especially with oysters, right? Because a lot of times it is consumed raw. So the regulations for them are very strict. And they're looking at all of these things because no one wants to make people sick, right? So they're looking at these regulations. They're very strict. They have plans that they have to write. It's a whole thing. So our farm raised and our wild caught guys are both going under very strict regulations, and they differ, of course, compared depending on what they're doing. If they're out on a boat catching things, or if they are raising those animals, and if they're raising those animals, what they're feeding them is going to be regulated. That's important as well, right? If our product is farm raised coming from another country, we don't know. We aren't sure what they might be feeding them, what they might be putting in that fish product. We can't be sure, right? And the regulations are a little looser over there as compared to over here in the States and of course in Texas. And like I mentioned, the sanitary conditions of all of these places, our oyster plants, they have to be kept very clean. They have to go through a lot of different steps to ensure that they can be certified to sell that product and keep that product. There's records that are kept like you wouldn't believe to ensure that all of these steps are taken. And we talked about sustainability earlier, and same thing here for our farm raised and our wild caught. Sustainability is a huge thing. We don't want to take more than we need, you know, making sure that there's always a resource there, always a population to support the next generation, right? And if we're taking animals or product from the water, if we're getting those wild caught animals, it's coming from approved waters. Again, I'm using oysters as an example because the season will start on November 1st, but between the Department of Health and Parks and Wildlife, the oyster harvesting areas are closed and open depending on sanitary conditions of the water. So your Department of Health will go out there and they're testing that water. And if they're finding too much stuff in it, for lack of maybe a nastier word, right, they'll close it down because that water means there's something bad in there. People are going to get sick. So that's closed and that water is no longer approved, and they'll keep testing it until that water is shown to be clean and safe. And they'll go and harvest the oysters. Then even for fishermen, there's fish advisories that will come out like, hey, we saw this body of water over here might contain, I don't know, maybe too much mercury or something. So, and they'll put out that fish advisory if, you know, you're pregnant, have an autoimmune disease or something like that, that if you were to eat a product coming from that area, you would get sick. And of course, you can look up those fish advisories. They're updated all the time. So if you're eating farm raised or wild caught, there's no difference in the quality that you are getting, because just like our cattle ranchers, right? They take care of those cattle. They make sure they're eating quality feed, quality grass, and that they are taken care of so that they do not get sick, because that's their business, right? If all their cattle die, well, they've made no money, right? So it's important to them to take care of those animals and to ensure their health and to deliver a quality product to the people they sell it to. Just like our farm raised fish products here, our shrimp farmers are doing the same thing. They want to put out a quality product. Our redfish farmers, which we definitely rely on because, again, you don't have a commercial harvest for redfish in Texas. So a lot of our redfish is coming from a farm, and it's delicious. It's a beautiful product because, again, they are taking such good care of those animals, because dead fish means no money, right? So they want to deliver a good product. And if they're also delivering kind of a gross product, people aren't going to buy that. So it doesn't serve them. Our farmers really care about what they're putting out there and do well to take good care of those products. So don't shy away from farm raised products. Actually, I had a conversation in HEB. I saw the farm raised shrimp actually coming from Bowers here in Palacios, which is super exciting. That's always really cool to see. And first of all, the shrimp were delicious, so good. But I bought them, and the guy asked me, he was like, hey, are these any good? He's like, I don't really buy farm raised products because I heard XYZ, right? And I was like, no. That is probably true for farm raised product coming from another country. But here in the States, that is a product you can trust for sure. And I advised him, I said, you better try this shrimp now. So I don't know if he did. I might have to go check on him. But buy your farm raised shrimp and support those farmers. And of course, support your wild caught harvest people, because y'all, both of these groups work incredibly hard. If there's any ranchers or people listening out there, y'all know that's a tough job. And the people that are living on boats for 30 something plus days, that's no easy job. I've been on those boats, y'all. You know what, those people work hard. So support both of them. They're doing a great job to deliver quality products to us. All right, so you have your product, you have your seafood, you're excited about it. What do you do with it, right? Well, seafood is such a versatile protein. You can basically, whatever your traditional protein you'd use, you can substitute it probably for like a fish, a shrimp, oysters, crabs. You can definitely use that if you're looking to kind of switch up your meals during the week. You'll see in the background, it's pasta. You can put anything in pasta. Shrimp is always extra good in pasta instead of maybe doing like a chicken or something. Put your shrimp in there. If you're gonna do, trying to think here, maybe like a chili or like a white chicken chili, right? Instead of chicken, throw some oysters in there. You'd be surprised how good it is. If you're worried about maybe some littles in your house that are picky eaters, start them off with some shrimp or some fish that's even fried, I guarantee they'll love it because it's so delicious. It's so good. And seafood really lends itself to a variety of cuisines. You could make tacos, you could do it in curry. Seafood is really so versatile, and I try to encourage people as much as possible, like try it out. I know sometimes it can seem daunting and kind of like, I'm not really sure how to do that, how to cook it. You'd be surprised how easy it is. Seafood also cooks really quickly. So there's not like hours of wait time. You throw those guys on the pan and they're done in minutes. It's awesome. And it's a great way to try new things. Again, if maybe you have some kiddos in the house, it's a great protein to expose them to try new things and kind of broaden their horizons. Or even for some of y'all out there that aren't super sure about it, I suggest you definitely give it a try. If you're able to do that, you'll be really surprised about it. I think for the most part, that's what I have. I do actually, I'm so sorry. I want to backtrack for a second and just let y'all know that our farm raised, our aquaculture here in Texas, it's a huge deal. It's worth $60 million here. So it is really a force to be reckoned with. It provides a lot of jobs for our local economies. It's a great way for science to get in there and to do research, because you have those animals right there and you can kind of look at it. For flounder rearing, we're trying to, not we as in me, but someone out there, Parks and Wildlife, they're trying to look at, how can we help the flounder populations? Well, they're raising those flounder and they can see them right there. And so it really lends itself to those research opportunities, and it's going to protect those species and things like that. So just my little notes there that I forgot. Apologize about that. And I think that's it. If y'all need recipe ideas, I have some cool QR codes. I just figured out how to do that today. I'm super hip and with it, obviously, but go ahead and I encourage you to check out the Facebook and Instagram here. Give us a follow, and you might see some fun recipes on there and just general information about seafood, about updates in the marine science world, things like that, if you're interested. And that's all I have, actually, kind of short and sweet. Hopefully I didn't put anyone to sleep out there. And Chloe, if there are any questions.
Yes. Before we get to questions, I do have a post-event poll that I would love for our viewers to.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Thank you.
I know, me too. So here's our post-event polls. If y'all could take a minute and answer that for us, that would be great. And while y'all fill that out, be thinking of questions. I have some questions. So how can we ensure seafood freshness at a seafood market or a grocery store? Like, how do we know if it's good?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So if you walk into, this is going to sound ironic, honestly. But if you walk into a seafood store or you get to that grocery store seafood counter and it smells fishy, y'all leave, walk away, because that fish is no longer good. It's been there too long, and not fishy in like the fresh kind of salty fishy smell. Really, fresh fish does not have a smell, if we're being really honest. And of course there's going to be like an air of a fish smell, right, when you, especially if you go into a seafood market. But if it is like a bad fishy smell, y'all, that is a great indicator of something's not right here. If you're served fish maybe at a restaurant and it doesn't smell great, another great indicator of this may not be a great idea. So that's a one indicator. If you're buying a whole fish and those eyes are nice and clear, the gills are red and bright, that's a fantastic way to know, okay, this product is also fresh. If those eyes are cloudy, the gills are kind of gray looking, drop that and just leave. You don't need that. But our local seafood dealers and seafood markets are really great about providing fresh product and not serving you some nasty stuff. So give them, and you can ask them too, like, hey, when was this caught? How long ago? If you're in a restaurant and you're unsure of maybe where that seafood's coming from, ask them. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. You do have a right to know that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to ask and not be afraid.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nicole. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box or the chat box. I'll give you all a few more minutes. I do have another question, actually. Where's a good place to look for like a list of local restaurants that sell Gulf seafood? Like, how do we know who's going to be selling the local stuff?
That's great, Chloe. So actually, I have it pulled up because I was looking at something the other day too. Oh my gosh, here it is. So if you go to, and I'll see if I can put this in the chat if I'm like talented enough to do this, maybe not. But if you go to the Texas Sea Grant webpage, there is a fantastic place. You go to the menu here and you'll go to programs, scroll down, and you're going to see Gulf Restaurant Partnership here. And it provides a lot of information about restaurants that serve Gulf seafood. There's also, scrolled a little fast, sorry y'all. You can also download an app. So you have it right on your phone. If you are looking for a seafood dinner and you want to go to a restaurant, and restaurants are usually the biggest seafood buyers, right? A lot of people, if they want a seafood meal, they're going to go to a restaurant. It's a huge restaurant market. You can go ahead and you can look on that little app there and it's going to tell you. So that's a great resource for y'all to use. I don't know, maybe you are able to, Chloe. I think I have to stop sharing for me to be able to do that. Oh no, I can do it. I can do it. I'll put this in the chat for you guys so you can look and download that app on your phone, available on Android and iPhone. It's for free.
Awesome. I didn't know we had an app. That's so exciting. I need to get
That's
that.
cool, huh? And I see
Yeah.
on the chat here, and that's a great point. I'm so glad, Ryan, that you said that, because it slipped my mind, but shrimp will get white instead of translucent if they've been frozen and thawed enough times. So you know, when you buy shrimp, it's translucent, right? Kind of has that like clearish color to it, which I guess clear isn't a color. And then when you cook it, it gets that nice pink kind of white color. If you go to buy shrimp at either the seafood market or your grocery store right there at the counter, and that shrimp already looks like it's been cooked, nope, do not get it. It's a sign of not great quality. So you want your shrimp to really be translucent. Ryan, thank you so much for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And also, while I'm thinking about it, this little panel keeps getting, if you are curious about, because again, our upcoming, our oyster season is going to be starting here pretty soon. Oops, wrong thing. If you're curious about those shellfish harvest areas, if they're open, if they're closed, where are they, right? We talk about oysters being harvested, but where are they coming from? You can actually look here and this will tell you if they're closed or not. I know these numbers, this harvest area number is not super meaningful to maybe anyone else, but you could also look here under maps and you can look at those shellfish harvesting maps and you can be like, hey, that's like right there. If you live on the coast, you know, that could be water right next to you and you never knew maybe. So that's a really cool way to see where our wild caught oysters are coming from. And very soon in the future, because people are getting approved for it, we will have oyster farms popping up, which is super, super exciting. So be on the lookout for that as well. Because again, I'm not biased or anything, but Texas oysters are the best.
Awesome. This was such a great chat. I loved it so much. Thank you, Nicole. This has been great. If no one else has any questions, I guess I can conclude this meeting. This video will be posted, and I just wanted to thank again all of our attendees for coming, and I hope they all learned something. This was a really fun chat. I really liked it.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you everyone for joining. I do appreciate it so much.
Well, awesome. I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday evening and stay tuned for our next chat.
All right. Thanks, Chloe. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.